Welcome, Bobcats, to another edition of From the Field to the Fans. I am your host and sports editor, Odus Evbagharu, here at the University Star. And here with me today, I always got my buddies here with me, Kurt Jones and Bert Santibanez. How you guys doing?
Good. I'm excited about this soccer game that happened Wednesday. Man, what an overtime thriller. They won 2-1 against Troy. The freshman Maddie Nichols coming through. Great game to go out and see. The crowd was electric. I couldn't believe how much people came out to support the Bobcats on Wednesday.
I'm really eager for the upcoming Texas State volleyball games. They're going to play their remainder 4 games on the road, so I'm really excited. They're third in the conference right now, and I think it's going to make for an interesting end of the season.
Yeah, Kirk, I kind of just want to touch upon the soccer game that happened Wednesday. Maddie Nichols scored the game-winning goal for them to beat Troy. They're going to advance the second round, play Western Kentucky, I believe, on Friday. So that's going to be a very interesting matchup with the Bobcats losing Western Kentucky by a goal, in double overtime. So that's going to be an interesting matchup. Yeah. Happy for the Bobcat soccer team. Later on in the show, we're going to have Quisam Ramirez, another reporter here with us to talk basketball. And speaking of basketball, the show breakdown. It's going to be a little fun here because we're going to talk about football a little bit. They're in their bye week. They're bowl eligible. There's stuff that they got to work on this week. I'm going to talk about volleyball like Bert mentioned. We're going to talk about the Monroe-Lafayette matchup. They beat them earlier this year, I believe, at Strand. So now they're on the road. Then we're going to preview basketball. Should be interesting. Coach Antoine and Coach Casper is going to have some interesting things for us to talk about, and some of the players and opponents that they're going to face this season. So that's pretty much what's going down on From the Field to the Fans. But before we get into all of that, we're going to take our first break with Vapor Essentials.
Can't drop the smoking habit or tired of inferior vaping products? At Vapor Essentials, we understand these issues. Let us show you the world of vaping at our new San Marcos location at 1515 Ocarina Springs Drive. We offer quality e-cig hardware by Halo and Totally Wicked, plus Texas Select Vapor. Our delicious top 12 flavor line will knock your socks off with nicotine ranges from 0 to 24. At Vapor Essentials, we are consumers for consumers. We are your e-cigarette store. Come by or call us today at 512-878-8869. That's 512-878-8869. 18 and older, we ID.
And we're back here to talk about Bobcat football. Guys, we talked about this last week, but the Bobcats are bowl eligible for the first time in school history. Second fastest to do it after entering the FBS. Marshall did it a little quicker, I think, by a couple of games. So that's really interesting. But, there's some things that the Bobcats need to work on for this bye week, I feel like.
Yeah, I definitely think they addressed the issue of the passing game. Tyler Jones, another great game. I think they need to give more control give him the keys to the car, so to say. I still feel like they're holding him back a little bit, and I think they're going in the right direction of giving him more opportunities to throw the ball around.
I think the secondary really needs to step up. I know that in the previous game against the Vandals, they scored 21 points on them. So I think that, that kind of that really needs to be a concentration, kind of tightening up on that secondary.
And I definitely think, too, that guy ran all over the rush defense, and it was supposedly be, one of the better rush defenses in the Sun Belt. I think you need to kind of address that, make sure that it's still fresh, still got the mentality of that doomsday defense they like to talk about.
Yeah, and I think with this bye week, too, that's going to help them because this is kind of a week where you kind of have to reorganize and kind of re-examine what you're doing and make those type of adjustments.
Yeah, and that kid from Idaho that you're talking about, Baker, he definitely had a big game against the Bobcats defense. I believe he rushed for 124 yards on the Doom squad. So that's something interesting. Also, like you mentioned, Kirk, they found balance. Finally, they didn't get the rushing yards that they usually get, but they got 108 rushing yards. Robert Lowe was able to score 2, and I believe Tim Gay had the other one. Tyler Jones being able to throw for 200 plus yards, throwing for 2. So that's something that the Bobcats need to work on. Definitely find balance and all that good stuff. But I talked to Coach Fran at his luncheon on Tuesday, and he had some interesting things to say. All right, I got Coach here with me. Coach, I know against the Idaho game, you finally found balance. Tyler Jones was able to throw for over 200 yards. I know you got 100 yards, but you still scored 3 touchdowns on the ground. How does that feel as a football team right now?
Good. We're improving. We're improving as an offense, and we need to do that. We've got tough games ahead of us, and we started out very inexperienced on that side of the ball and young, and you're as a coach, you got to believe that you're going to be better in November than you were in September, and I think that's happening with this team.
You're riding a 3-game winning streak right now. Something that you've preached since spring football is the mental toughness, keeping focus. How do you get your team to keep the focus that they need to heading into November and having those defining moments that you talked about?
Well, we spent a long time talking about this week, Sunday, and how to handle it. We practiced on Sunday. We'll practice Tuesday and Wednesday. Right now you kind of are what you are. You can improve in some areas, but the major thing I think is let's don't lose our edge. Let's don't lose our focus. So we need to practice well. We need to come out today and tomorrow and have the right approach, and the practices will be a little shorter. But while we're out there, we need to go hard at it and then come back Sunday ready to go.
Coach, the win against Idaho was huge, not just for the program, but for the school, being bowl eligible for the first time in school history. Can you kind of expand on how important that win was for the program, for you, for the players on the team, and everyone else as Bobcats?
Well, it's huge to be in our second year of FBS football and to qualify for a bowl game. That's only happened one other time, and that was Marshall University that did it a little quicker than we did. So that's huge, and I hope it's something that the students and the alums and fans are proud of. We're proud of it as a football program. We're proud of it as players and coaches, and we're proud that maybe we could do something to instill pride in Bobcats everywhere.
Coach, I know coaches don't like to look ahead, but you still do have one more game against Western Kentucky. Yes, you do need those other wins to kind of clinch yourself in a bowl game, but how important is it for the students and the alumni and everyone else to come out and support the Bobcats here at Bobcat Stadium?
Well, I think it would be huge to come out and let this football team and these players know how much you appreciate what they've accomplished in such a short amount of time. It's always important to show the bowls that you have great support from your fans and things like that. So that's another component that we believe would be good to show. But most of all, I just want our players to feel their support for what they've gotten accomplished in representing this school.
Well, fellas, Coach Fran had some interesting things to say, on camera in that interview that he did with me. So what do you guys think?
Definitely like how he addressed the 3-game winning streak. That's huge, having momentum off the bye week. I know you probably want to keep going, and that bye week probably came at kind of a wrong time, but having that 3-game winning streak going into Western Kentucky is great.
I think one of the most interesting things he mentioned was that, he really wants the student body to come out and really support the Bobcats because they have accomplished something very special, this season, with becoming bowl eligible. The second fastest program to do that in SBS history. So I think that that certainly should motivate the student body to come out and support.
Yeah, I definitely think he mentioned the alumni too. A lot of people forget about the alumni. They're the people that take pride in their sport just as much as the students do, and I think giving a little shout out to alumni was pretty cool too.
Yeah, I think it's important that the fans show up. Get the 6 wins. You're bowl eligible for the first time in school history, but it's important for the fans to come out and show their support. Bowl committees don't just look at the record, the win-loss record. They look at who's coming to these games, how well they're traveling. So it's very vital for the Bobcats to come out and show support, especially alumni. That's a big base, the fundraising, the money that can be infused into the program. I think that's a big deal, and I'm glad Coach Fran addressed that. He kind of gave gave us the politically correct answer, which is fine. He's been doing this for 20-plus years. I don't blame him. He doesn't want to upset a lot of people, but it's very important for the fan to show up. Another thing for the Bobcats is, too, they are riding that 3-game winning streak, and they enter a bye week, which you're kind of like, I wish you could still keep playing. But he did say, and he alluded to at his luncheon, that, hey, the focus is just keep having that winning mentality. Don't let up. Don't give up. So it's really important, especially for this bowl game. I'm a firm believer that it's not 6 wins is not enough, and I don't think 7 wins is enough. I think they've got to take 2 out of the last 3. They've got to win the game at home against Western Kentucky and take 1 on the road against Arkansas State or Troy.
And I think Coach Fran said it best. It qualifies you. You know, you're qualified. It doesn't mean that you got to be you have to be qualified. So I think they know that this is just the first step. You know, they still have a lot of way to go. And Western Kentucky is just the next team that, you know, is a pretty good squad. Bobby Petrino is an offensive mind, great coach, coached a great Arkansas team. So something definitely got to prepare for.
Yeah, and what a moment in the season to have that balance on offense. I think, we saw Robert Lowe getting career games, but I'd rather see, that balance, and have some reduction of running if they're going to still continue to be balanced on offense.
Yeah, and I know this is probably Coach Fran's not thinking about any of this, but throwing is more entertaining, honestly. Ground and pound, that's old school. I mean, people are like, God, I'm going to take a nap. But Coach and I think Tyler Jones, hopefully he kind of starts throwing the ball more. I know they run that offense, that option offense, but let's throw some. I'm liking where the team's going offensively.
Yeah, and you had that highlight, that one-hand catch by Isaiah Battle, in the back of the. Yeah, exactly. I mean, that was just superb,
Yeah, and it's really good that they get this bye week. A lot of players are going to be able to heal, go see their family, get comfortable for a little bit. But hopefully they can keep that mentality. Hopefully the bye week can kind of rejuvenate them and understand that there's a task at hand. It's not over. 6 wins is not it. You still have 3 more games. If you can finish 9-3, no one can complain. No one can say that Texas State Bobcats is not bowl eligible. Another team that here at Texas State that we like to talk about is the volleyball team. They're definitely looking for some momentum themselves, looking to keep the focus, looking to stay in the top half of the Sun Belt. Currently, they sit 3rd, and we're going to talk about them going on the road against Monroe and Lafayette. But before we do that, we're going to take a quick break with our sponsor, Vapor Essentials.
Can't drop the smoking habit or tired of inferior vaping products? At Vapor Essentials, we understand these issues. Let us show you the world of vaping at our new San Marcos location at 1515 Ocarina Springs Drive. We offer quality e-cig hardware by Halo and Totally Wicked, plus Texas Select Vapor. Our delicious top 12 flavor line will knock your socks off with nicotine ranges from 0 to 24. At Vapor Essentials, we are consumers for consumers. We are your e-cigarette store. Come by or call us today at 512-878-8869. That's 512-878-8869. 18 and older, we ID.
And we're back. We're here to talk a little bit about Bobcat volleyball. Bobcats sit 3rd in the conference, tied with UT Arlington. Actually, they own the tiebreaker because they beat UT Arlington, I think, last in the head-to-head and some point differential things going on there. But it's going to be interesting. They're going to play a Monroe and Lafayette team that they beat in straight sets on the road.
Yeah, they beat both teams earlier in the season at Strahan in straight sets. Coming into the game, I think they're going to first play ULM, and ULM is coming off a victory against the Trojans, which the Bobcats were able to beat twice during the season. 2 really key players, I think, on the ULM squad that the Bobcats are going to really have to game plan around is both freshmen, Haley Shorts and Hope Pollock. In their previous game against the Trojans, both totaled over 20 kills. So I think that's something that they're going to have to really game plan around. And, the Bobcats are not necessarily the most successful team on the road. So I think that's going to be a bit concerning, finishing these 4 remaining games of the season on the road.
Yeah, and I definitely think that, they beat these 2 teams before. They're familiar. I know seeing a team before you play them and knowing how they play is a whole lot easier than going into it not knowing what they're going to do. So if I'm not mistaken, ULM is last in the Sun Belt, so there's that. I know we try not to look at the record, look at the players, but still, I mean, you have to take account that they're not very good in their last. So I think I see them handling themselves pretty well, even though it's on the road and they struggle on the road.
Yeah.
They definitely, Coach Chisholm will have them ready for.
And not to mention, ULM, they have a home record of 1-4 on the season, so that's something encouraging, I think, for the Bobcats.
Yeah, I definitely think they're going to take it. If you're bad at home, then I'm sorry, there's probably no hope for you.
Yeah,
I mean,
there's some problems going on.
Yeah, home is where the heart is.
Yeah.
So obviously they're not going to be that good.
Yeah, and I kind of want to bounce off something that Bert said. You said on the road they're struggling. They're 4-5 away and on 3-2 at neutral sites. I know they don't statistically count that as a road game, but they do struggle on the road. So it's going to be interesting to see how they play Monroe. You said Monroe's last in the conference. Yeah. Remember soccer. They took for granted Monroe, who was last in the conference. They ended up beating Monroe ended up beating the soccer team for Texas State. I believe 2-1 in the last 15 seconds of the game. So you never want to take an opponent for granted, and you always want to go in there and say, you know what, we're the dominant team, and they should have confidence. You beat a team in straight sets here at Strand, so that should always be a motivating factor.
Yeah, and I think this far into the season, I think the team has really experienced, those humbling moments. They had a game against Texas Tech at home, and it was their first home loss. They were up 2 sets in the match, gave up the next 3. And I think that moment in particular really was a very sobering experience for the Bobcats. So I'm not necessarily too concerned with them remaining focused and closing out the games, because they know how crucial these games are. And Coach Chisholm has mentioned before, they want to be number 3, coming in number 3 or number 4 in the tournament. And she even said that, she wants to go 4-0 these next 4 home games or road games.
Absolutely. I mean, you always want to win every game. I think that should be the mentality going into any team. But I kind of want to hit on something to look for, and that's the seniors. They just came off their senior game. I think knowing that's the potential last home game, or it is their last home game, that's going to fuel them we can't let our season end. We're going to win these games. Yeah. We're going to go in the Sun Belt tournament and dominate.
And what's interesting, too, the seniors have that type of tenacity, going in, this last stretch before the conference tournament. But it also is a motivating factor for the underclassmen, because they want to send the seniors out on a good note, and I think that's, having that whole motivating factor as a collective unit is really going to hopefully contribute some success.
Yeah, and the thing about that whole dynamic with the inexperience and experience clashing together, having a whole season underneath their belt, you start to feel like family. Start to feel like, man, these seniors, they were my big sisters. We got to do it for them. And the big sisters, hey, we got to start building your legacy. So It's going to be really fun. It's going to be really interesting to see what they do in these last 4 games. Another game that they're going to play is Lafayette. They're playing the Louisiana universities. Excuse me, not Lafayette, Louisiana, because they want to be known as the Louisiana Raging Cajuns, and they think that they're a big
So they dropped Lafayette?
Well, they're trying to. So it's going to be really interesting to see what happens to that. But they are going to play Lafayette. And they beat them in straight sets. And actually, it got really interesting in the second set, because the Bobcats only won by 2. But in the first and third set, they beat Lafayette 25-15, differential of 10. And then in the third set, they beat them 25-12. So I don't know what happened in that second set where Lafayette made it close. But I do think Lafayette does have a little bit of revenge on their mind. Plus, I believe Lafayette sitting in the middle of the pack.
Yeah, they're 5th in the conference right now with a home record of 6-2. And again, they're an interesting team. They're a team that beat Western Kentucky, earlier in the season, which was a huge upset. Yeah, big upset on the season. And I think that was the last loss that the Hilltoppers actually endured. So they're one of those teams that are kind of unpredictable. Like you said, you mentioned in the second set, they can have one of those point scoring surges. And I think like you said, also that I think they have some revenge on their mind because they are a good team, and the fact that the Bobcats were able to dispose of them in 3 sets, I think they really want to send a message that, hey, you know, we're a little bit more difficult to get rid of.
Yeah, it sounds like that game against Texas State and University of Louisiana was not telling of how good they are. You know, they did beat them in straight sets, but you know they're better than that. They obviously have the potential to beat anybody because I mean, obviously West Kentucky is the #1 team in the Sun Belt.
Yeah.
And if I was Coach Chisholm, I'd be looking at that game tape between those two
true.
teams.
Yeah.
Like, obviously that's probably the best they've played all
Yeah.
season. You want to game plan against them at their best, and I think that's something that they need to look at.
Very true because, I mean, the Bobcats lost to Western Kentucky twice. So I think that's a good point that Kurt made. I think there was something in that game that Lafayette was able to do that I think that the Bobcats really need to try to emulate.
Copycat. You know,
Yeah.
I always talk about it's a copycat league, especially in college,
NFL.
professional sports, anything you do, everyone's copycat. Another thing about that Lafayette game that they played, not a single Raging Cajun player double digit in kills.
Yeah.
None of them. The highest total was I'm looking here. It says 6. It's the highest total by Kaylee Nemeth. So clearly in that game, maybe Lafayette wasn't as good as what they thought they could be, or maybe the Bobcats are just a better team than them, and it's just another team that they have to take care of. You got to take care of business. The mentality of the team going into this weekend, win, period. If it takes 5 sets, 4 sets, 3 sets, it doesn't matter. They got to win. You got to keep, just like Coach Chisholm said, she wants to stay in the top half of the Sun Belt. That way they can get a favorable matchup come tournament time. So definitely the mentality of them has got to be just win.
Yeah, I think that's certainly the mentality both with coach and the players, and I think all the rest of the players understand that, including the underclassmen. You just really see it, in post-game interviews when you have Anne-Marie Deerdorf and Ashley Hilbun, speaking. I mean, you can tell that they're just fully focused right now, and they know that, hey, this is our senior year when we're approaching the conference tournament. I mean, it is, it's serious time right now, and I think that they're going to be able to maintain that focus.
And I would think that they don't want to leave a game thinking that they didn't play their best, especially the seniors. They want to leave it all on the line. They want to know comfortable that they played their best, and I think that that's going to kind of rub off on the underclassmen. The underclassmen don't want to let them down. I mean, they don't want to be the cause of losing a game and leave the seniors with a bad taste in their mouth.
Especially with players like Anne-Marie Deerdorf, who earlier in the season was honored for being the 16th player in Texas State history to record over 1,000 kills. I mean, these players have put up historical numbers. I mean, Ashley Hilbun with a career-high 24 kills this season gets UTSA. So, like Kurt said, I mean, these are some, legendary type of players.
Yeah, definitely you don't want a big letdown this weekend.
Yeah.
Before we go to our next break, I got to get predictions. What are we doing this weekend in Bobcat Volleyball?
I think they're going to game plan well. They've seen them. I think Lafayette will go to – I think the ULM game, they'll win straight sets. But I think the Lafayette game is going to go 5 sets, and I think Texas State wins.
Actually see both games going 4 sets with Texas State winning both.
Okay, well then I'm just going to trump both of you. One will go 4 sets, one will go 5 sets, and Texas State will end up pulling it out, and they'll still stay third. I do believe they do have an opportunity to be second. They need a little bit of help, and they got to take care of business themselves. Yeah. So it's going to be interesting to see what Bobcat Volleyball does. But another team that's looking for momentum is the men's and women's basketball team. Basketball season has arrived upon us. When we come back, Quisam Ramirez is going to join us to talk a little bit about women's and men's basketball and what we are going to look, the outlook, the preview of it all, and see if we've made any adjustment and improvements. But before we get into all of that, we're going to take a quick break and hear from our sponsors, Vapor Essentials.
Can't drop the smoking habit or tired of inferior vaping products? At Vapor Essentials, we understand these issues. Let us show you the world of vaping at our new San Marcos location at 1515 Ocarina Springs Drive. We offer quality e-cig hardware by Halo and Totally Wicked, plus Texas Select Vapor. Our delicious top 12 flavor line will knock your socks off with nicotine ranges from 0 to 24. At Vapor Essentials, we are consumers for consumers. We are your e-cigarette store. Come by or call us today at 512-878-8869. That's 512-878-8869. 18 and older, we ID.
And we're back. Talk about women's and men's basketball. But before we get into that, we added another sports reporter to the desk. Quisa Ramirez is here to join us to talk about basketball. How you doing today?
I'm doing good. How about you?
I'm doing awesome. I'm excited about the basketball season.
Me too.
Good
Me
outlook
too.
for
Exactly.
2013-14 season. So it should be something interesting. Should be something fun. And you know what? Let's just get right into it. You're going to be covering women's basketball this year. Kind of give us a little breakdown of what we should expect from the women this year.
This is a team that they were 38th ranked offensively last year. They're very high pace. They like to push the pace, create points in transition. They like to, generate chaos on defense, force low percentage shots. They're kind of a team that wants to generate that thing. But actually, Coach Antoine, she mentioned to me that they want to get back to her roots. And she played at Colorado State in 1994 through 1998, and she was a defensive player. She kind of set screens, blocked shots, and she wants this team to embody what she used to do. And she's trying to get these younger girls to play defense and, work on the fundamentals. Is that something she wants to harp on as the season progresses?
Yeah, and I think it's indicative, for a team that's ranked 38th in the nation in offense when you have a player like Diamond Ford that they lost last season. I mean, Diamond Ford, she averaged the most points in WAC conference, with 20, I believe over 20 points. And she was actually broke the single season scoring record. So I definitely think, there's a change that has to happen in the dynamics of the offense.
Yeah, I definitely hope they can adjust without losing that huge of an offensive asset. It's always tough to lose the go-to person, so I really hope that they can adjust well and find that new kind of shot maker.
And that shot making is going to be very different this year. She came from the perimeter. She kind of slashed to the paint.
Right.
And this year they kind of incorporated an offense where they had 4 guys around with 1 post. Now this year they're going to be using more 2-man sets, jump into the post, work some inside out. And Kaylin Martin said that's going to ease her workload. That's going to make her get open shots on the perimeter because they're going to have actually interior threats that are a threat to score. And that's going to be the thing that's going to be interesting to see if they can actually develop that part of their offense.
Yeah, this is a team that only won 10 games last year out of the 30, and they finished, I believe, 4-14 in conference. They're going to be looking to adjust. Last year, it was more up-tempo. They had a lot of guards. Ashley Eze gets hurt. She misses most of the conference games, which hurt them a lot. I know a big thing that you talked about is what she really wants to focus on is defense and rebounding. Last year, they did not rebound the ball. I mean, we covered women's basketball last year, and you're looking at the stat box, and they're getting creamed on the boards
in the paint.
by 10, 20 in the paint.
Points in the paint,
yeah. So they were getting creamed. So I know, with the size, with the infusion of the incoming freshmen and some of the redshirt players that didn't play last year, it should help them a lot, especially in some of these games against UTA, the Western Kentuckys, UALR, the Texas of the world. With the size coming in, it should help them a lot. And with that senior leadership of Kaylin Martin that you alluded to.
And defense is a premium, that's what Antoine said. And to be a good defense, you need interior people. And the team is going to be relying on, 6 new players, 4 freshmen, 2 redshirt players, a junior in Kalia Mays, and a redshirt junior in Jacqueline Jeffcoats. And those 2 players are going to be expected to be, key cogs of the rotation. They're expected to defend the paint, and if they can't, this team's going to be really easy to score on, and that's going to be a tough thing for them to adjust to.
It just seems, they have, physically now that it seems that they have all the equipment in place. They have the larger size players, that could be threatening, potentially threatening the paint. But it just seems with such an underclassman, all these freshmen, it seems that's like a lot of expectations to put on players like that, inexperienced players.
Yeah, but I think that's how Texas State is. It seems like every sport has young players that have to step up. And if they're trying to develop a down-low presence, I definitely think that that's the right mindset because that leaves shooters open. It leaves them open to take open shots, and it just makes the offense flow better.
I guess I'm just really skeptical is because, you're having so much change, it's so much change all at once with – a lot of inexperienced players, and I guess, my question is, how is that going to work? Hopefully it does, but, it just seems like that's going to be difficult for them.
Well, that's not necessarily true. They do have a lot of freshmen coming in. They do have those 2 redshirt post players that they're going to bank on. But you still have Kaylin Martin, who's a senior. I believe she's a 5th-year senior, so that experience is going to help. You have Ariel Anderson, Miss Energizer Bunny. We talked about her a little bit last year. She's there. She can push the tempo. You have Erin Peoples, who played a lot as a freshman last year. It's going to help in the post development. And then you have Ashley Eze. And I kind of smile about her because she's a low down low. Mm-hmm. I mean, she's going to bruise. She's going to get the rebound. She's going to score the points. She was picked to finish second team on conference. My bold prediction, I talked to Queesman about this earlier, she's going to compete for Sunbelt Player of the Year. She is that kind of player. She averaged. She was averaging a double-double, I believe, before she got hurt last year. She's going to make it look easy.
Yeah.
But that's it's gonna happen, and she's gonna definitely change a lot of things. So, just like I want to say volleyball, the inexperience and experience when you play together, by the time they get in the conference, I think it can mold together. It can be gel together, and when you have a great coach like Coach Antoine who knows her X's and O's, I think they'll be fine.
Well, there's still a lot of high variance pieces that need to materialize. There's a lot of young players. They're kind of trying to shift to a defensive mentality while still maintaining the pace. She's having these taller. She mentioned that they have a lot of depth on this team, and that she's still getting them to run. And having these people run, it's kind of a disadvantageous thing because these guys, they might get tired. You don't know how to expose their paint. There's a lot of things that she's working with and tinkering. And there's still a lot of questions about this team. And really, no one actually knows how they're going to be. So they actually were 9th out of 10 in the Sunbelt preseason coaches poll, which goes to show kind of the mentality, the way people think about the program. And actually, Coach Antoine is hoping to change that. But there's a lot of things that have to be in place for them to, get better.
Yeah, it just seems like when you have, like you said, when you have big players running up and down the court and then you expect them to play defense, I mean, that's a lot. I mean for players, especially throughout
especially if they're young.
Especially if they're young and throughout the whole duration, and be able to handle that mentally and to be able to, grind and throughout the whole season. So, it's just, a lot of responsibility, multitasking for these players.
I think Coach Anton definitely have them prepared, though. She's had to deal with a rough season last year, but I definitely think she's come out of it well prepared and ready to take on the Sun Belt.
And the other thing about it, too, is that we can tend to forget they're young.
Yeah.
Expectations are out the windows. You can set them as high as you want to. It doesn't matter what you have for them. Their expectations, they're young, they're freshmen, they're sophomore. So when it comes with expectations, and I kind of look at it the opposite. If you're young, you have fresher legs. You're coming out of high school. You come into college, all you're doing is hustling. You want to play. You want minutes to play. You're trying to prove to the coaches that, hey, you know what? I can be that go-to person, no matter how old you are. Wednesday night, who scored the game-winning goal for soccer?
Maddie Nichols,
a freshman.
Yeah.
Who's leading the Bobcats right now in football? A true freshman.
Yeah.
So when you look at it that way, in sports and in college, that's what makes sports special. That's what makes sports the way it is. That's what makes it a way of life, is that, hey, look, we have all these young guys on our team that we can expect from. We don't have to expect greatness. We just expect something. And so with that, expectations are out the windows. Just perform, hustle, play, do your job. Now, them being picked to finish 9th in the Sun Belt, I think it's a multitude of things. I think Ashley Eze not playing last year kind of made their record a little lower than what it really was going to be. And another thing is that I do believe that them coming over from the WAC and coming from another conference and stuff like that has a little bit to do with it, kind of a little Sun Belt bias a little bit. So it's going to be interesting to see how the women perform. But before we kind of get out of the women's realm and go into the men's, there's some key opponents that the women are going to play this year.
Yeah, the Sun Belt is a really loaded conference. Western Kentucky is a dynamic offensive team. They have junior forward Chastity Gooch, junior guard Alexis Govan, and Govan was actually the 15th highest scoring guard, or actually player, in Division I this year. And she's actually she won the Sun Belt Conference Preseason Player of the Year award. And those two, they kind of form an inside-out presence. And Gooch she tallied 26 double-doubles, which is second most in Division I. And she does it all, though. She's top 50 in steals, blocks, field goal percentage. She does it. She runs the gambit. So there's a lot of things that she does well, especially defensively. And now that they have her interior and Govan in the exterior, they're a team that's really dynamic to watch.
Wow, I mean that's just some impressive stats right there. I mean, especially, a player that what you said 26 double doubles, yeah, last season. I mean, that's
all time.
yes, that's just unheard of. I mean, if Texas State is going to go up against those types of opponents, I mean, certainly, yeah, there's going to have to be an emphasis on defense if you're going to try to compete at the top of the conference.
And they're playing Texas too, so Texas is Big 12, big conference team. They're always going to be good. So playing them just down the road, it'll be cool to see how they play against tough competition in the upper tier of conferences.
I know Queesham's chuckling a little bit because Texas, they finished 12-18 last year.
They struggled quite a bit.
They did struggle, and but it's always good to play those upper echelon teams. Whether they struggle or not, they're playing in that Power 6 conference and all that good stuff. So for the women, it's going to be interesting. They have a lot of moving pieces. Expectations aren't as high, but you know what? You go out there, you play the game for a reason. If it was just on paper, they'd be winless, but there's a reason why you play. So it's going to be interesting to see. And they're not the only basketball team on campus. We have a men's basketball team who's going to usher in a new era with Danny Casper. That's going to be fun. But before we get into all of that, we're going to take one last break and hear from our sponsor, Vapor Essentials.
Can't drop the smoking habit or tired of inferior vaping products? At Vapor Essentials, we understand these issues. Let us show you the world of vaping at our new San Marcos location at 1515 Ocarina Springs Drive. We offer quality e-cig hardware by Halo and Totally Wicked, plus Texas Select Vapor. Our delicious top 12 flavor line will knock your socks off with nicotine ranges from 0 to 24. At Vapor Essentials, we are consumers for consumers. We are your e-cigarette store. Come by or call us today at 512-878-8869. That's 512-878-8869. 18 and older, we ID.
All right, I have Coach Casper here with me. Coach, last night you ushered in the new era, the Casper era here at Texas State basketball with the win over Sul Ross. How do you feel about the performance for your team last night?
There were some good things, and of course some things that I wasn't pleased with. It's a work in progress. It's a bit different than what they have been used to, and I have to remember that and try to maintain patience sometimes with some decision making that I think is not conducive to winning. But overall, I think they played hard, and it was their first time to play in front of fans like that. So I knew they were going to be excited, and hopefully that got some of the jitters out of their system.
Coach, defense forced 21 turnovers last night. I know one big thing that you talked about, especially in your intro press conference here, was playing defense. You wanted your guys to play defense. It caused 21 turnovers last night. How do you feel about that?
Well, I thought our defense was good in spots. We gave up we gave up penetration too often, which led to breakdowns in our defense. Obviously, like I said, I give my group probably a B minus maybe. Then again, I'm coming from the last 6 teams have been in the top 10 in defensive scoring, and we've been known for that. So, it's a pretty high standard I'm comparing them to. But like I told the 5 seniors, you guys want to go out winners, and therefore I've got to hold you to high standards if that's going to happen.
Coach, you out-rebounded your team by 20. I believe you had 26 offensive rebounds throughout the game and 17 in the first half alone. I know coaches talk about rebounding and defense being a vital part of winning, especially at the college level. So how do you think your team fared in that regard?
Well, obviously they were not a Division I program. They were not as big as us. So, I was appreciative of our rebounding efforts, but I expected that. And I said, the whole thing I've tried to come across with these young men, we've got to raise our standards. We've got to raise expectations of ourselves. We cannot, be tolerant of mediocre performances or mediocre practices, whatever the case may be. So I had hoped I probably would have been frustrated and somewhat upset if we hadn't done as good a job rebounding, because this was not a Division I program we played. And this was, so to speak, a tune-up game, warm-up game, get the jitters out. and they did overall a pretty good job. Like I said, I'd give them a B minus.
Coach, I know Joel Wright is the big name that's coming back to the team this year. Mm-hmm. How have you seen his game develop in all aspects and all phases of the game?
Well, I'm trying to get Joel to be more efficient. You know, he led the league in scoring last year, but I think his efficiency was not what it should be. Go ahead, Joel. Let's see if we can get you 17 points a game on fewer shots. Let's get you a better rebounder and even get your assist average up, and even maybe better defensive player. I think Joel has a chance to play for money somewhere. But I think he has to improve his overall game, and I'm working with him, and he's working with me to try to do that.
Coach, I know the only thing on the stat line that I saw yesterday was the free throw shooting. I think it was about 53% in that area. What do you tell your players, to get them motivated to make those free throw shots at Cherry Stripe?
Right, that is. That was a concern of mine. That was one of the areas I will mention to my team today. That's, one of the negatives of yesterday's performance. And we've got to sit up there and shoot, try to get 70%, 72% from the line. That kind of free throw shooting will allow us to win some games. If you're going to go play Houston, Texas, Utah, SMU, you're going to have to shoot the ball well from the free throw line to win. You cannot shoot 53% and win. So it's a good point you're making.
And we're back here to talk about men's basketball, kind of outlooking the 2013-2014 season for the men's basketball program. And there's a new era that has dawned upon us in the men's basketball team. It's a Casper era. Danny Casper has joined us from SFA, Stephen F. Austin Lumberjacks. And it's interesting because Danny Casper, for the past 6 years, has been the winningest coach in the state of Texas. That's something to aspire to. He won the Hugh Durham Award, which goes to the nation's most outstanding mid-major head basketball coach in the country at the D1 level. When he was at Incarnate Word, I believe from 91 to 2000, he never had a losing season there, always made it to the NAIA tournament. When he was at SFA, I think he posted, three losing seasons at SFA, and he was there from 2000 to 2013. Wow. He was a mainstay in the tournament in the Southland. He was always, if not competing for the tournament, competing for the titles. And so he's going to bring defense and possession-oriented offense to the Bobcats. It's just going to be something interesting to see moving forward.
Yeah, and I definitely think I heard something really interesting that Bill Walton actually said. He said that this was the best hire in college basketball. Yeah. And I was shocked. I mean, I didn't know Coach Casper was on that level until I heard him say that. And it's definitely going to be a culture change. They're going more from an NBA-style offense to more of a defensive mindset. So it's going to be, I think, a a harder transition because they're kind of changing styles.
I would definitely agree with Kurt. I mean, what an acquisition for the team, for the program, to get such a coach with so many wins under his belt. I think that type of kind of, like Kurt mentioned, that kind of culture change where expectations are going to be raised and there's going to be more emphasis on, individual effort and things like that, I think is something that's really needed for the program.
And that isn't going to happen overnight. It's kind of a thing that's going to be gradual. Mm-hmm. And it's a good decision to, slow down the offense because that means you have less possessions. And if you have less possessions and you're kind of a mediocre basketball team, then you kind of neutralize the advantage your opponent has. So if they're slowing down the basketball, they're limiting the possessions, that's a good spot for a team that hasn't been historically good. And that's a good start until, they develop a strong program going in the future.
And you want to talk about historically good. They've been historically bad. Yeah. They have not posted a winning season since 2004, 2005. That's pretty much a decade entering this year. So they're looking for a culture shock. And I think Danny Casper is going to bring that. And where he starts with is Joel Wright, the all-WAC performer. Averaged 17.8 points per game last year. He led the WAC in that. But Coach Casper had some interesting things to say in that interview that I had with him. He's trying to make him more efficient. They thought he put up 17 points, but they weren't efficiently done. He was putting up way too many shots to get those 17. He wants them to score 17, but score them at an efficient rate. Get his rebounds up. Get his assists up more. Get his teammates more involved so that way the Bobcats as a unit can be more efficient.
Yeah, and he had 123 turnovers last year and only 57 assists. So, that's definitely got to change. That's, his passing ability, I would think, is a little underrated. I think he just got to make better decisions as a passer.
Yeah, I mean, you look at just the stats, and you see 17-point-something points, and you say, oh, that's impressive. And then you look at the efficiency rating, how many shots it's taken him to do that. And there you can see the true kind of character of his game and some of his weaknesses, certainly.
And that kind of hamstrings a team when you're not efficient and you're not a good team already to start off, and you're already wasting these possessions, jacking up 16-foot mid-range shots. You're kind of hurting the team's bottom line, because if you were a good team, you can kind of say, all right, you can take that shot. But if you're Texas State and you need to work with what you have, you can't accept that kind of inefficiency.
And every basketball team needs a star player, and sometimes it's hard to be that player that's doing all the work and you're taking so many shots. It's harder on the team and it's harder on the player himself. So
I'm kind of interested in how Joel Wright is going to adapt to this. How kind of Davalos kind of let him have his way on the court, and now he seems like Casper seems more of a disciplinarian, that he's not going to accept this, this type of performance from his player.
Yeah, and Sam Rebelke, who's our men's basketball reporter here at the University Star, talked to Joel Wright on Tuesday, and Joel's kind of accepting it. Okay. He's accepting it. He's saying that he wants to be the role model for the younger guys on the team. For now. For now. That's the thing about basketball. All these superstars, your egos just to get in the way. You're losing by 15. It's my time to shine. So
see where the true character is.
He did talk to Joel, and Joel did say that he's trying to be a better example for the younger guys, like a Kevin Tilbury. Guys that are coming in, they're transfers, trying to be a better role model, be more efficient, get his teammates more involved. Against Sewell Ross on Monday, I believe, their exhibition match, Joel Wright had 12 points, but he also had 10 rebounds. He did have a double-double, so that was pretty showing. And the 12 points, I believe, came off 6 or 7 shots. I cannot remember. So he was pretty efficient in it and was able to do some things. And a thing that's going to help Joel Wright is the ability to use Phil Hawkins. Phil Hawkins came on kind of late last year, but if I remember correctly, he led the team last year with 90 assists. I think he was 3rd or 4th in the WAC conference last year. So when you have a point guard that can kind of distribute, kind of control the pace, it's going to take some pressure off of Joel Wright, especially now that they're playing better defense, limiting the possessions they have so they can be more efficient as a ball club.
Yeah, and he ranked 3rd in assist to turnover ratio in the WAC last year. So he's good awareness, and he. Along with that, he is a good floor general. He's like a second coach on the field. He sees it, he surveys it, knows the right decisions to make at the right time. That's what you want a point guard to do.
Yeah, I think for an offense, it's crucial. And like Queetsum said, they're starting kind of fundamentally. They're starting and they're gradually starting to change their offense and their whole kind of scheme of things. And to have a general like Kurt mentioned, a floor general in Hawkins, I think that's going to be really important to build on that.
And you need a lot of experimentation with a team like this. You need to see, hey, that works, that shot works, hey, that defensive decision does, you should rotate there. There's a lot of things that you need to tinker with, and that's what Davalos is going to, Casper, that's what he's going to try to incorporate into the team. He's going to say, that's what we did last year, but that's not going to stand this year. And that's a thing that's going to be down the line. And eventually, they might not get it initially. They might struggle the first 10 games, but maybe down the line, maybe the last 10 games of the year, they'll pick it up and understand this is the way we play, this is who we are, and this is the way we're going to continue to play.
Yeah, and Casper said, he's raising expectations. He's raising standards. No more mediocre performances. No more mediocre practices as well. That's where it starts. Is on the practice court. So, it's gonna be really interesting to see how they do. One quick thing is that raising expectations, you're going to start playing some of these better teams in the conference. And we're going to talk about a little bit about Western Kentucky. Western Kentucky, for the past, I believe 4 of the past 6 NCAA tournament bids, they've gotten from winning the Sun Belt tournament. They're back-to-back champions. They've gotten the last 2. So it's going to be interesting. They've had 7 20 game-winning seasons, so they've gotten 20 wins for 7 straight seasons now. That's going to be interesting. It's going to see how expectations are raised when they play teams like the Western Kentucky, Louisiana Lafayette. And then you go non-conference, you're playing the SMUs, the Houston, the Texas, the Utahs. So there's going to be a lot of big programs here where Casper's theory of no more mediocrity is going to be tested.
Yeah, and this is – I can't remember the last time they played such a high-level schedule. They're playing great teams and great conferences, and around this area too. You said Texas, Houston, all those teams. They're good, high-conference teams.
Yeah, seems like expectations certainly have to be raised if you're going to go compete against teams that formidable. With programs with long-lasting winning seasons and things like that, and have kind of already infused that kind of culture of having that winning mentality.
And you need to pay attention to detail. You need to pay attention to detail, especially when you're struggling. You can't overlook anything. You can't say that doesn't matter, because it does. And in the grand scheme of things, these little things add up, and that's kind of why they were in the position they were in the past 9 years, where they haven't won games. And they need to understand that every little thing about basketball, every little play, every nuance about it does matter. And that's something that I think Casper is trying to change.
I think that's about mentality too. When you think oh, that'll fix itself, that's when you do stuff like that. When you're a good team, I guess you can kind of do that, because it probably will. But you can't have that mentality of letting the little things go by, because, like you said, it adds up eventually.
Yeah, when you're a mid-major program like Texas State is, you know the little things you've got to take care of yourself. You got to go into these places, and I'm not looking for W's per se, but I'm looking for competitiveness, being in these games, taking it to the last minute. They did that last year against SMU when they played them at home. It kind of got to the wire there. Hall of Famer Larry Brown was in the building, so there's a lot more fans here, but it was really good to see that. And it's going to be interesting to see how they can adjust to expectations being raised, standards being raised. Hey, you're not a Southland team anymore. You're not a WAC team anymore. You're in the Sun Belt Conference. You're competing. You want to go to an NCAA tournament. They've only been to 2 in the program's history, so that's definitely something that I'm pretty sure they're aspiring to, or even making it to the NIT. I think Casper's defensively, he's going to help out a lot. Offensively, they should be more efficient, and I do think that it's going to be a good season for the men's basketball program, and you're going to see them compete a little bit more. Before we get done with the show, I got, like we always do, got to get the final thoughts of you guys.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. You're going to see improvements, and I think that's all you can really expect right now, because you have a new coach, you're understanding a new type of offensive and defensive game plan. I think improvements are going to happen.
There's some warning signs, like they haven't been good in the past. There's a lot of things that they're doing a different system, but ultimately there's a lot of things that that you can say, hey, maybe we have a chance. And ultimately, I think that's what you'll see this year. You won't see them being a dominant team, but you'll see them being competent, and I think that's a good way to start.
Yeah, this year is, I think, for the men's basketball, is definitely to be a year of experimentation, like Quisa mentioned, and just like to just tinker with stuff, to tinker with the offense and the defense, and to kind of, I guess, get kind of a general scouting report on like certain players or certain offenses to run and things like that. So I think with those adjustments throughout the season, I think they'll be at least a competitive team.
With Bobcat Athletics, when you talk about soccer, volleyball, football, men's and women's basketball, baseball, softball, they just finished their fall games, finishing undefeated. Expectations are risen now across Bobcat Athletics. They're competing on the Division I level. They're playing Division I caliber teams that are championship level. So it's good to see expectations and standards raised all across Bobcat Athletics. And this is another fun episode. There's a lot to look forward to. The men's and basketball team, they have a schedule. Casper's here, Coach Antoine. She's got pieces that she's going to be working on, so that's going to be fun. Again, for Quizem Ramirez, Kirk Jones, Bert Santibanez, I am your host and sports editor here at the University Star, Odus Evbagharu, and we will catch you guys later.